native habitat, you can do that real cheap. A hatchet and a squirt bottle. In country where you're going to do hack and squirt, or maybe you had a logging operation and stuff is 3 foot tall, and you can go through with a backpack sprayer and a match.
Right.
And matches are cheap, and you can still get a lot of food to the ground. And not only are you getting food, but you're also getting that cover component.
You're listening to the Dirt School Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Johnson, and if you like hunting, fishing, country stories, and learning lessons from those who live their lives in rural America, you're going to love this podcast. Brought to you by Hunt Real Outdoors. All right, guys, welcome back to the Dirt School Podcast. Today we have on here Mr. Daniel Mallette from Growing Deer TV. Daniel, thank you so much for being on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing this. I always like to, at the very beginning of the podcast, to ask the guests to introduce themselves and maybe tell me, where you're from originally, what you do, and we'll go into right after that of how you got to the place that you are today. So go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Yeah, from northern Missouri originally. So grew up in the far far bits of Missouri, right on the Iowa line, about 5 miles from the Iowa line, and then I've moved to about 9 miles from the Arkansas line in southern Missouri. So one end of the state to the other, and in southern Missouri, I am work with Grant Woods, and we run a weekly web-based show, and we share how the kind of the how-tos of land management, deer management, hunting tactics, things like that. So that's kind of what I do, and really enjoy it. Get to be
Yeah.
outside a bunch, be in the outdoors, and it's fun.
Yeah. Well, how did you get to, like, what did you do before that? And how did you get connected with Grant and the Growing Deer TV?
Yeah. Went to college here in the area, and actually started going out a couple summers in college out to Colorado with the Division of Wildlife out there.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people may be throwing up hands, oh, Colorado. But
That's right.
had, had a great time out there. It was really blessed to work at a research facility. Actually, it was the research facility that CWD was first discovered. And so those links, through my life, I guess. But worked there, did some really cool stuff with elk, bighorn sheep, mule deer, had a blast out there, and kind of wanted to get back into the Midwest into whitetails. That's kind of my passion, it's been growing up. And so I just reached out to Grant and said, hey, you got any internship opportunities? I knew he did internships. And he said, actually, we don't have one in the fall. And I was just kind of finishing up my seasonal work. And he said, can you be here in 2 weeks? And I
Oh,
got the
man.
green light from my work there in Colorado. I said, yeah, man, go for it. And so interned and then got hired on. And I've been there coming on right around 12 years.
Cool, man. Well, I know that you, just in watching the Growing Deer TV, I know that you're in front of the camera. Um, I don't know what else you do, so I'm inquisitive to the degree that I would love to know exactly like what you do as far as the Growing Deer TV is concerned, and just working with Grant in general. Like, what all do you do?
Yeah, we're a small team. We'll have 3 or 4 employees. Some editors. Here and there, interns, but really small teams. So small teams wear a lot of hats. So
Yeah.
do a lot of the filming, do a lot of consulting, where we go and we work with landowners and help them design site specific projects for their property, specifically for white-tailed deer and turkeys for the most part. And just of course social media, that beast, always trying to
Right.
produce some content. So yeah, wear a lot of different hats. I don't do any of the editing. We have a great editor that does all that, but anywhere in between there, I bounce back and forth on any given day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand that for sure. And you're right. That social media thing can be a beast for sure. Constantly
Yeah.
trying to put something out that you feel like will be valuable, to the viewer, and
Yeah.
then yet at the same time trying to find time to do all of that. with so much other work
Yeah.
going on, so it can be difficult
I'd
for
much
sure.
rather just be out in the field doing something out there than a phone in my hand.
Yeah, not have to worry about filming anything. Yeah, no doubt.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
if one of the things I love, and this is for anybody who might be listening that has not ever watched the Growing Deer TV, one of the things I love about what y'all do is whenever I was investigating buying a piece of property, um, all I could do, like I would Google search like in YouTube or something, like how to fix up a 40-acre piece of
Yeah.
property or something like that. And y'all would come up. And really that's kind of how I stumbled across the grow. I'd heard of Grant Woods for a long, long time, but
Yeah.
I stumbled across the Growing Deer TV because of that, just investigating how to manage land and fix the land if I bought a piece of property and it popped up. And the cool thing for me is that I could watch y'all's videos where y'all were showing how you fixed this certain 40 acres up or 80 acres or whatever.
Right.
And that was so informational to me. And even if I didn't buy a piece of property, I have hopes of doing so again. And so it was just good information to kind of stick in my mind of how I might would do that. So now
Yeah.
it's kind of changed the way that I look at a piece of property if I go look at one. Like, okay, I
Absolutely.
remember what they were saying about this and that, and making sure you create these little pinch points with a hidey hole food plot or a little pond or something to where the deer have to go through. So all that stuff just rolls around in my mind. And for anybody who's thinking about that kind of stuff, y'all's channel is phenomenal about doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. That's our passion. We enjoy helping landowners kind of re, kind of reach the potential of their property
Yeah,
and enjoy it. Not
yeah,
only from hunting, but just enjoyment, the aesthetics and all that. Because a lot of property, recreational properties, mama's out there, she wants to see wildflowers, and the kids are going for
sure.
walks on the weekends, and that's all part of it. How can you get out and as a family or with your buddies enjoy the property that you have access to?
Yeah, and watching y'all's stuff as well, it was the first time I've ever really heard someone talking about not necessarily disking the fields up and not necessarily using chemical, using as little as you possibly could and doing like y'all's buffalo system or whatever. I mean, like when did that come about? I mean, did is that something that Grant just kind of birthed in his mind one day, like wonder how they did it back in the day, and then just started doing it with the fire and all that. So
Yeah.
so maybe I could frame the question like this, Daniel. The way y'all manage the property, if there's three or four things that you would say this is a staple of ours of what we do on properties, what would it be?
Well, every property is different, and we
Yeah,
want to help the landowner reach their goal.
yeah,
But you mentioned a couple of our systems. One thing, especially in our food plots, that we've really tried to do is to kind of mimic as close as we can, given the tools at hand, to the natural process. We call it the release process, releasing creation's potential, and it's really a reflection of the Great Prairies.
hmm
You know, you look at our production ag and the problems we have there with nutrient vanishing from our food sources, all the synthetic fertilizer that's being applied, herbicides, all the negatives of that. Well, that's just we're just robbing the resources, just trying to pump stuff out. And the natural process, what God created was, a great example. That was the prairies,
yeah,
and there was huge herds of buffalo moving across the landscape, elk, deer, all that, and they're pooping on the landscape, salivating. Microbes from their saliva is going into the soil. Those microbes are pulling nutrients. You have a huge amount of root system just underneath the soil. Think of soil as like an iceberg. You think that plant is up on top. Well, 70+% is down below the surface. It's that root system. And the production ag guys, if we're honest, they're just robbing the soil that was built over all those years of making the Great Prairie. And those processes built huge amounts of soil that we're still using today. So for most people, when they buy a property, they come into this property and it's like bare. It's the bottom of the barrel. It's already been logged or something like
Right.
that. And now how do we manage this historically mismanaged property and try to heal it and restore it to its full potential and plant being as close to how God created it, we can get there. And that's using plants, you know, using prescribed fire. Fire was always on the landscape. Using those processes, we can accomplish some really good things. And like, for example, in our food plots, well, no one was ever disking the Great Prairie and it was building soil. So we've learned over time that if you don't disc the soil and you use the right plants, a diversity of plants like the Great Prairie, there was tons of diversity, hundreds of species. The more the diversity we can put into our plots, different root systems, pulling different nutrients up, feeding those microbes, then not disking or tilling that under, but just laying it on top and letting it break down slowly. You actually build soil up. You don't build it down, but kind of build it up. And over time, even the harshest conditions, we've got clients that are in really sandy soils, and within a few years, they've got a layer of black soil sitting on top of their food plots. We've got clients in, wicked clay, red clay, hard brick type soil, and tough conditions take a little more time, but they're even gaining soil on top, building soil.
Yeah.
And that's all through these process. And then on the habitat side, really using prescribed fire and letting those species that are already in the soil express themselves, grow. They've evolved for those sites. So you're way better off using the seeds that are in the soil than coming in and planting something else,
Right.
because those seeds have evolved over time to, maybe that site's a little droughty, or maybe it gets a little more shade or a little more wet. And using fire really helps control the hardwood component maybe that's in there at the right times, and control some of the nasty species that we've seen over time that creep in. For example, at our place, they're called, we're in the Ozark Mountains.
Right.
And most of our south facing slopes, if you drive through the mountains, most of those slopes are eastern red cedar. Well, those cedars are native, but fire always kept them at bay. They were always in the bluff country, right next to rivers or wherever, where the fire wasn't really getting to. And those south facing slopes were always droughty, sun's hitting there, and fire, whether a Native American lit it or lightning strike or campfire got out, fire would rip across the landscape. And all these south facing slopes were called balds because it looked bald, like someone's head, on the
Right.
south side of the mountain. Fire would rip up through there, killing pretty much everything except maybe a couple trees that were a little more fire resistant, based on years of being on that site, and then hit that north slope and creep down, and then hit the next mountainside, rip up it. So you started getting this diversity of really good habitat on the south facing slopes, grasses, wildflowers, those forbs. And then you had that oak component on the north slope, which you had your acorns. And you were starting to pack in tons of critters because now you had acres of habitat. And you were also keeping those native those cedars at bay. And we've removed fire from the landscape, and those cedars just took over. And so fire, is great, but you got to time it right, use it. It's a great tool. But if you don't do anything, nature doesn't like a void. It's going to fill in.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, down south, you think of a big pine plantation, guys haven't done anything, or there's a cut, and sweet gums just take over. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And then you're back down to, nothing
Yeah.
from a habitat point of view. Remember,
Yeah.
most critters make their living from that 0 to 3 feet.
Yeah.
It's not, that sunlight that's taken up by trees, that's wasted.
Yeah.
It's never getting to the animal,
Yeah.
except for a few acorns here and there. So,
Sure.
yeah, using fire, using, just kind of reflecting on those natural processes that built the Great Prairies. How can we incorporate that into our habitat work, into our food plots? That's what we really enjoy doing. And it's very effective. And especially on the native side, it's fairly cheap.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of bang for your buck if you focus on native habitat. And native habitat is extremely productive, especially when you're talking about growing antlers. Everyone's thinking, soybeans fields and
Yeah.
ag country. Like, I came from northern Missouri. That's what I grew up in, seeing those big bucks out there. You never hear anyone really talking about like western Kansas or western Oklahoma. In the really western parts where there is no ag, they're still growing monster bucks, 180 plus
Yeah.
deer just off native vegetation. Because a lot of native vegetation, when it's palatable, is 20+% protein.
Yeah.
I mean, and deer are concentrate select feeders, so they're going to pick the best when they have the opportunity and leave the rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're constantly picking and choosing. And when they have that really diverse diet where they can actually have the ability to pick what they need, then they can really express their potential.
What would you say to what would you say to a person? I mean, because it like I'll just say for me, just thinking, I could see where someone who doesn't know all of that, like myself, hears that and maybe would think, man, I don't know. I just don't know how regular grass, native grasses could be better than like planting a big old wheat field right there, you know? I mean, because that's generally what happens around here where I
Yeah.
live in Louisiana. Just plant a huge wheat field or some kind of, greenery. What would you say to a person that maybe has that mindset to think it's better to have a wheat plot than just your regular native grasses because they're not going to use that as a destination source, or do they use it as a, you tell me, because y'all do it. I don't, we don't do it around here like what
Yeah.
you're talking about. So,
Yeah, there's a couple ways to look at it.
okay.
And that's where it really depends on the landowner specific goals and objectives.
Hmm.
A big food plot, you can get more tons per acre,
Yeah.
but you pay for it because there's
Yeah.
someone else is growing it, putting it in a bag and shipping it to you, so
Hmm.
you're gonna pay for it. Um, it's it's really good when you're talking tonnage, native habitat. You can do that real cheap. A hatchet and a squirt bottle. In country where you're going to do hack and squirt, or maybe you had a logging operation and stuff is 3 foot tall, and you can go through with a backpack sprayer and a match.
Right.
And matches are cheap, and you can still get a lot of food to the ground. And not only are you getting food, but you're also getting that cover component.
Yeah.
And so it really depends on your goals and how the property lays. How does that habitat design play into the neighborhood? And that's a big one too. If you're looking at, from a hunting strategy on a property, maybe you want a big destination food plot like you're talking about, but where do you put it? Well, ideally, you'd put it in the center of your property and then have cover on the outside, because now deer have to travel in and out of the property. They're covering more, they're spending more time crossing your property. You're more likely to catch them during daylight to harvest,
Yeah.
rather than tucking food right up next to the neighbors, trying to pull them off the neighbors. Well, one or two hunts, you get busted or whatnot. That deer's going to say, hey, I'm just going to stay over on the neighbors till after dark.
Right.
And so that's where the design of the habitat and where you place those big plots come into play as well.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I talked to, um, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name now, and I know his name like the back of my hand. But he's another guy that he does a lot of management, land
Uh-huh.
management, things of that nature. And he talked about um, a lot of people try to avoid small acreages like say 40, 60 acres, 80 acres, something like that that's isolated and doesn't have like backup cover. But he said he loves property like that, that doesn't have all of the neighbors, that maybe open fields around it. And because he could take and design that 80 acres. He said the minimum he would do was 40, but he would design that 80 acres to where he would hold those deer on that 80 acres, and then he would just be very selective in what he hunts and how he hunts, but he would be successful in that. Do y'all find that there are small properties that you manage that may not have a lot of backup cover, but through y'all system, it's worked out really well for the neighbors? Hindsight.
Yeah, and I think what you just shared and what that gentleman is probably doing, I think a huge part of that is the hunting strategy
Yeah,
and how conservative you are in hunting a
yeah,
small piece.
yeah,
You on small pieces can be really good. I
yeah,
I I would probably lean more towards having some really good small pieces rather than one big chunk.
yeah,
It's going to be cheaper to manage, and you know you can have some options, but you got to be really selective on when you hunt them because you can mess them up really fast.
yeah.
They're not quite as forgiving on bumping deer, especially if you start talking about mature bucks.
Right.
But a little, even a 10, 20 acres, if it's in the right travel corridor at the right time of the year, man, it could be magic and hunt way better than some big pieces.
Right.
So it's really, when it comes down to it, like you just said, it comes down to the neighborhood too.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and that's one of probably the hardest things when you're talking managing deer or hunting. One of the biggest hurdles to overcome is what's going on in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you could do one thing to change the neighborhood, start a little co-op or work with your neighbors. The more people you have playing by the same rules, quote unquote, or kind of the same goal, man, that's going to be way better off than just trying to get a big piece of property. Because
Right.
even when we visit clients that have a couple thousand acres, they're still complaining about the neighbors.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that something?
Everyone has neighbors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody
So
complains about the neighbor.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, let
It's
me
yeah,
ask you. Let me ask you this, because in following the YouTube channel that you guys have, I know that Grant had, and I'm not real sure how much property it was, but he had like the proving grounds, and then he fixed all of that, and I
yeah,
don't know how many years it took him to do that, but he fixed all that. He just sold that, and now he's working on what he's called or y'all are working on what he's called the proving grounds two. Is that
yep,
correct?
yep.
So tell me what that process is like for y'all. When he went into the proving grounds too, was there anything developed already, or is it
No,
just complete scratch?
it was pretty much complete scratch. Um, and I got to tell you, it's amazing. The properties butted up next to each other, and they're
Right.
only divided now by a holler. And where the new property starts, it is so much more flat, and it
Uh,
hunts much better.
uh,
Folks, if you're going to look at property, you want flat
yeah.
from a hunting point of view. The old property, we estimate about 10% of it was huntable. 1,500 acres, about 10% of it was huntable because
Wow.
of the terrain and thermals and all that. It was tough.
Yeah.
This property is very flat, and we were able to make more ground quickly doing projects because we'd learned on the last property. We learned, you know, if we fell cedars in 2 years, we can get really good native habitat with a fire in there. Or, let's take this block of low quality hardwoods and do some TSI, some hack and squirt, and after one fire, we've got a lot of great species in there.
Yeah.
In fact, we've been there. Let's see, I think this is year three, going off my memory, 3 or 4. There was an area we've done TSI, and it's as flat as pancake, and it was just leaf litter. And it's just closed canopy, low quality hardwoods. It had been high graded in the past, just bunch of junk post oaks, nothing in there. We did some TSI 2 years ago, have done two fires in there, and Grant's gone through there and he's identified close to 100 native species.
Wow.
And more are coming on every day, because that's the other thing about native species is it's almost like a time release food plot, right? You have some species that are flowering already right now, making seed. They were palatable 2 months ago. And now
Right.
you have other species just starting to come up that are now palatable. So extremely productive. We took it
Yeah.
from a biological desert to, it's green, neon green under there right now. It's stunning.
Yeah. Wow. So when you like say the first year from a hunting perspective, the first year y'all, let's just say it was 3 or 4 years ago, the first year y'all hunted that. What is the difference in the amount of game you're seeing now and maybe the success that you're having when you first started as opposed to now 3 or 4 years later?
Yeah, seeing a lot more game,
Okay.
and that's another thing. The game patterns have changed. So when you're talking about hunting, our hunting strategies are kind of have to change year to year, because as we've changed the habitat, it changes how deer move through the property.
Yeah.
And so it's going to take a few years before everything's kind of cooking with gas and we really have some defined bottlenecks and whatnot. But
Right.
yeah, the hunting's been great. It's taken some time. In the mountains, there's real subtle bottlenecks. Little saddles or some little secondary ridge elevation change. The deer wrap around, probably because the thermals work a certain way, or they're moving up and down the slope. That takes time to learn.
Yeah.
But it's so flat. We're learning the property so much faster than the
Yeah.
old property.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
seeing great deer, growing some great deer. I think this year was probably our best year, crop of 2 year olds.
Yeah.
And that all goes back to, well, those were fawns just a couple years ago when we started doing habitat work. When those fawns hit the ground, they had their moms and those fawns had better groceries than any of the previous generations.
Sure.
And so our 2 year olds are looking awesome, even
Yeah.
compared to our older age class deer, because those deer, generation after generation after generation, they didn't have any groceries.
Right.
And we're already just a few years into it, we're seeing those lower age classes be a step above other age classes that are there.
Sure. Do you now how many acres is the new property, if you don't mind
Right
my
around
asking?
900.
Okay, around 900.
Yep.
Is it just like Grant's family and you and your family or something that hunts it, like, or is there more
Yep.
people that hunt it? Okay, just
Yeah,
pretty much y'all.
primarily Grant and his family, and we hunt for for the show.
Show. Yeah.
Um, you know, it's dominated by acorns,
Yeah.
and we hunt it conservatively,
Yeah.
trying to hunt more on the edges and give them sanctuary in the center.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of our hunting strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now y'all used I noticed on the proving grounds that y'all used a lot of the hidey hole food plots and
Yes.
hunted those a lot. Is that still the same kind of strategy that y'all would use on this one too, figuring that out?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Hidey holes or kill plots, small plots in the timber are bread and butter.
yeah,
It creates a pinch point bottleneck in the middle of big timber,
yeah,
especially where there's low quality habitat. You get a little something green, they got to come in.
yeah.
And they
Are-
really shine early before the acorns drop and
right.
after acorns are consumed.
Yeah. Now, do you try when you creating like a bottleneck? Do you try to find like let's say a thicket and then put one, to where they have to go between the thicket and the hidey hole, or you like a road bed and then put it over here and then they have to travel in between? Is that the way you set that up, or
I Grant and I probably look at it a little different. We're
okay?
so conservative on our hunting strategy. We don't really think about how the to an extent. We probably lean heavier towards how can we as hunters get to the hunting location.
Without being
The, de-
seen or heard.
the deer will find it and
Yeah,
travel to it when they want to go there. It's how can we approach, hunt, and exit without alerting deer.
that's
And
great.
yeah, there is some placement strategy. The closer we like hidey holes, fairly close to bedding area, 75 yards or so.
But you'll
If we can,
create the bedding area.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
If we can get it closer to that bedding area, the more likely we're to encounter that buck during daylight
yeah.
because they don't have to move as far from cover to food.
So it would seem to me just, and I think I remember this from watching your videos, but just correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem to me like if you were traveling in this way on a road, you traveled in, could get there real easy. You have your hidey hole here that y'all would create the bedding over here so that the deer wouldn't see you coming in, but they're bedded close on the other side and they just pop right into the, is that, would that be the strategy that you would implement?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the most part.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're really thinking about scent and wind and when is this hidey hole? It may be a hidey hole that you don't hunt till the late season
yeah,
because that cover of bedding's more of that late season cover.
yeah.
There's a lot of factors there.
Some of the hunts that I've seen on y'all's channel, and I certainly hope that anybody listening or watching would go check out y'all's channel. It really is phenomenal. But I've watched y'all hunt with some rifles, and it looks like some of them deer crossing those. Maybe y'all are hunting on a little bit bigger field, maybe some of the prairie type field and native
Yep.
grasses, and those deer are crossing those ridges. Is that kind of a strategy for y'all as well in the rifle season?
During the rifle season, our goal is we want to cover as many acres as we can with our eyes.
Yeah,
Because bucks are moving.
right.
And so we don't we don't hardly ever just sit in the timber.
Okay.
And there's no doubt there's deer in the timber, they're eating acorns. But when you're talking about the number of hours spent, you're more likely if you can cover more area.
Yeah,
And so yeah, those native habitat areas, that's one area we hunt looking into it. If you can look, into the hill, that's even better because they don't even know you're in the world. I
yeah,
mean, it's like a western hunt almost.
yeah.
You're shooting into the mountain
Right,
or looking down into native habitat. Uh, Little tip for guys that are doing that: you want to make sure you have a clear shot and that bullet's not being deflected. And
right.
we'll even take time, several weeks before season, and we may take a weed eater out there and cut a lane out in the middle of this big native habitat. We'll see them coming. But
Yeah.
once they hit that lane, we've got a clear view where we're not deflecting a bullet. And we've learned over time, we don't mow that to the ground. Deer cross that really fast.
Yeah.
If we mow it about knee height on a deer, they there's enough cover there. They feel comfortable like they're picking their way through there, and they'll slow down quite a bit going through that
Oh,
lane.
wow. Yeah, that's a good tip for
Yeah.
sure.
So the native habitat is a big part of our hunting strategy. We have a utility easement, gas line, power line.
Right,
If you got any type like that, that's just deer are going to cross at some point.
right, right. Well, I noticed, and I've been wanting to talk to you about this as well because I noticed you probably see this back behind me.
Yeah.
I'm a trad bow guy myself, and I noticed that y'all have taken up the trad bows a little bit, and so I'm curious about what brought that transition about and how have y'all enjoyed that thus far? I
Yeah.
mean, I watched a couple of videos of you and Grant killing. Matter of fact, I watched you kill your first deer
Oh
uh,
yeah.
with it today. I wanted to refresh my memory on that. So tell me how y'all got into that, what sparked that interest, and then how you've been enjoying that so far, and how different is that?
Yeah, have loved it. Have loved
Yeah,
it. Actually, he's always been shooting traditional. Even, he'll go home and he'll be shooting for years. He's had one. And he has killed some really nice deer with his stick. Um, Black Widow's just right up the road from us.
okay.
And of course, Grant kind of had a passion for it. He's like, man, why don't we just go see if we can shoot some Black Widow? So we partnered up with Black Widow and started shooting last year on camera and loved it.
Yeah.
For me, it was my first time ever shooting and kind of had to learn. And I probably have terrible form and all that. But I was just, I was like, man, probably like basketball, right? Everyone's got an opinion on how to shoot,
Right.
but you kind of figure out what's good for you, how quick you can get it off, how accurate you are. Once you just kind of find what's good for you.
Right.
And so I kind of went down that route and just started just shooting arrows. And I found it much more enjoyable. Like when I just go out to practice, I'd find myself out there way longer practicing just because I enjoyed it than I ever did with a compound.
Right.
And just really enjoyed it. And then was able to harvest my first deer with it, which just happened to be a buck. And you want to talk about a thrill. I think probably the only time I'd been that pumped was probably when I shot my first deer. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like that level of
Yeah.
excitement.
Yeah.
And I always enjoy harvesting deer, but it it was way up there and an incredible memory for me.
Yeah.
Um,
That
and
was a heck
really,
of a hunt too, man. That deer was
uh,
grunting and all that stuff at them does.
it was one of those mornings you kind of dream about it was the typical pre-rut.
Yeah.
One doe was probably just starting to come in, and she was the bottleneck. And there were three shooter bucks behind her, and one thankfully walked in range. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you something I have learned. You were talking about a while ago. People probably have different opinions about how to shoot with traditional bows and all that kind of stuff. Um, if you get on very many traditional bow hunting forums or whatever, you will get caught an idiot real fast.
yeah,
Start saying this, or if you make, because I like make video, because like I killed my first deer with a traditional bow, and it happened to be a buck in Kansas. And then so
cool.
the next year I wanted to make my own bow, and
Yeah.
I wanted to shoot one with a bow I made, which I have. It's actually, let me see if I can, that one right up there.
Oh wow, that's you made that.
I made that, yeah. And
Neat.
so I made that the next year to hunt with, and I wanted to kill a deer with it. And so then I got a 10 point over here from Kansas. I killed with that. And
Wow,
so yeah, and so you
that's
show these
cool.
videos, and then so I'm thinking, okay, a content creator, so I want to kind of, you know, make some videos about traditional bow hunting and stuff. And it does not take long for somebody to be like, "You're stupid. That's not the way you do it." You're like, well, I got that one on the wall. I got another one on the wall, and I killed one last year, so I'm doing something right.
Yeah, I heard it when I was getting into it. I heard someone, I can't remember who said it, but I was listening to someone, and they said a good traditional hunter, they're a good traditional hunter if they're killing animals.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right. And
Yeah,
that, he just left it at that. He didn't
yeah,
say anything about form or
yeah,
anything like that, how
yeah.
far they're shooting. If they're
Well,
harvesting animals.
it's so many ways to you always have, like, like your purist,
Yeah.
and it's you can't, it has to be strictly instinctive, and it has to be wooden arrows and feathers and stone points if they allow it in the state, I mean, you have those guys that to them that's the only real way to do it. And
Yeah.
then you have, other guys that use aiming mechanisms and stuff like that, which is what I do. I started out instinctive and I just couldn't be accurate. And I was like,
Hmm.
I want to hunt with this thing, but I'm not accurate. And I don't want to go out there and wound a deer. And
Yeah.
so I started watching a lot of videos on, like gap shooting. So I was like, well, let me learn how to gap shoot. So I learned how to gap shoot, and that worked fairly decent, but I was like still every now and then just a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah.
And so then I said, well, I'm just going to do some more research. And then I learned about a fixed crawl. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but a fixed
Hmm.
crawl. So I started, instead of adjusting the gap at the front, you adjust it at the back. Well,
Yeah.
man, it changed my world. I was like, I can hit like this because I can use the end of the arrow as a pin. Just
Yeah.
so many, I know how far down my string to move my fingers and to put that arrow on wherever I want to hit, and it'll hit. As long as I get it right back here, it's done. And I'm not shooting over 20 yards anyway. So that just changed my life, man.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fly very well on like traditional archery sites. It's like that's not real hunting. You're like, okay, well, I'm killing deer with it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's neat. That's
Yeah,
neat.
the traditional stuff though for me, man, and I'm not purely traditional, but I will say this: for the last probably 20 years, just about all I've done is bow hunt. But last year I picked up the rifle a little bit because I got on a hunting club with my grandkids, and it's a lot of pine thickets with a lot of lanes and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And
yeah,
so I picked up the rifle a little bit. And so I bought me a new rifle this year. And so this coming year, I'll hunt a little bit more with a rifle just strictly because of that. But
yeah,
I love bow hunting. I love getting them close. And the traditional stuff, man, just makes me feel like I'm 10 years old. And if a
yeah.
doe comes in, I'm a nervous wreck, man. Like, oh, I got to make a shot. I mean, it's just exciting. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Kind of added a new um I'm always grateful to kill deer because I love it. I love hunting. I love trying to beat them at the game. You know, I just love all of everything about it.
yeah.
But once you kill so many deer, you know, it's like, okay, you know, I'm used to killing deer and I've always liked a challenge. And so when picking up the traditional stuff was just like a severe added challenge because now them suckers got to get real close, you
Yeah,
know?
and it
That's
causes you to hone your woodsman skills
yeah.
and all that. A
Yeah.
lot of things change in just how you hunt and think about your game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Now, do y'all when y'all were hunting with your traditional bows, did you just like pick and choose the moments that you wanted to go, or was it like I'm hunting with this thing till I kill one?
No, we were committed to them.
Yeah.
We were hunting with them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt
Yeah.
good to get it, didn't
Oh,
it?
it felt really good.
Yeah, yeah. Did Grant feel the same way, or had he killed deer before with a traditional bow in times past?
He'd killed some good deer in the past. In
Okay.
fact, he killed a whopper of a old buck out in western Kansas, early 2000s. His buddy is an incredible hunter and was, kind of focused out in western Kansas. He all he did was spot and stock,
Yeah.
and Grant spot and stock with his buddy on this buck. I think he shot him at like 5 yards out of his bed in this tall native grass,
Oh man,
and
that would be
it
so
it
awesome.
it was a cool hunt. He actually his buddy was filming and got it on footage. It was cool.
Really? I mean, he
Yeah,
don't have that on his YouTube channel somewhere?
I think it is.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have to go back and find that.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah,
It's
that is
it's rough.
impressive.
It's rough,
Well,
but
sure, sure. Yeah.
it's a really cool hunt.
Yeah, that's
It's what you
impressive for
dream
sure.
about,
Yeah.
sneaking up on a buck that size and
Yeah.
just shooting him out of his bed. I mean, that's neat.
Yeah, I had one of the guys from not Midwest Whitetail, but I had one of the guys from Heartland Bowhunter on here,
Hmm.
and he was talking about, I think he said it was South Dakota or something maybe. And he went on a spot and stalk mule deer hunt out there. And when he and I, it was Sean Luttrell's who I was
Yeah,
talking to, and he said, man, I believe you could do it with a traditional archery out there. He said, I think you'd have a good chance at sneaking up on one out there. You know, just
yeah,
the way the terrain is and how you can kind of work your way. But that would be like an ultimate high for me to spot and stalk
yes,
because that's kind of a bucket list hunt that I've not been able to do. I want to spot and stalk either a mule deer or a whitetail, and it
yeah,
would really be awesome to do that with a traditional bow. Yeah,
yeah. It would.
yeah,
That type of country is stunning and
yeah,
set up perfectly for doing
yeah,
that type of stuff.
yeah. I went to my wife and I, my family. We went to Wyoming, Montana this past
Yeah.
year. Dude, I fell in love with that country. I was like, man, I live in Louisiana. It ain't nothing like this.
Were you breathing a little hard
Yeah, man.
walking up
Yeah,
those
yeah,
mountains?
yeah, just a little bit. Yeah. With my bear spray on my side, like just checking everything out. But it was breathtaking. Matter of fact, I took all these pictures there in
Oh,
Wyoming.
really?
Yeah. And
Neat.
so it was just breathtaking to me. I could see where a photographer, it would be a
Oh, yeah.
dream for a photographer to live out there. Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Beautiful country. Beautiful
Yeah.
country. I was out
Yeah.
in Wyoming this fall. My buddy drew a pretty good tag, and he asked me to join him on an elk hunt. And so
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
chase elk out on the mountain. He killed a heck of a bull on the first day, and it was a good time on the mountain. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'd love to do that too. I've got a guy in my church, and I pastor a church here in Louisiana, and we've got a guy that just moved here from Arkansas, but he travels a lot and hunts different, mostly turkeys. He loves to hunt
Yeah,
turkeys,
yeah,
and he went to Wyoming and one of them Dakotas, hunting turkeys here a couple weeks ago, and I might try to hook up with him one day and see if I can't make one of them trips with him and
yeah.
hunt out there. I'd
Wyoming's
love to.
got some great turkey hunting.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to go out there. I'm afraid if I went out there one more time, I may not come back. I'm gonna have to take my wife with me.
I hear you.
So man, it's something
I
else.
hear
But
you.
anyway, so is Grant originally from right there?
Yeah, pretty
Okay,
close.
okay,
Just Springfield area, Republic.
okay.
Yeah, kind of grew up. Then he went to college down south, and so
Yeah,
learned a lot about pines and
yeah,
kind of cut his teeth into that habitat. And then and now we work all over the Whitetails Range.
yeah. Okay, yeah. So y'all just travel all over. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Well, y'all doing great work, man, and there ain't no doubt about it. I thoroughly enjoy watching y'all stuff. And a few years ago, a couple years ago, when I was really thinking about buying another piece of property, dude, I was like every night I was watching y'all's videos of like
Yeah.
trying to figure all this stuff out, and I'm like, now when are you supposed to do all that? And I write all this stuff down, and then I didn't buy no property, so it was like, well, still got all that information,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a good resource to go to. So I certainly recommend that for anybody. But man, I appreciate you just taking a little bit of time to chat with me. I've been
No,
wanting to
absolutely.
talk to you or
Enjoyed it.
Grant one, and I've enjoyed the fire out of it. A lot of information you've shared that anybody that's into land management, I don't see how they couldn't glean something out of all the stuff that you've shared tonight. So it's been good, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Really
is y'all's
enjoyed
turkey season over?
it. It ended Sunday.
Okay,
Yep.
all
And we
right.
had a good turkey season. Grant and I both killed the first week, and then week 2 and 3 things got pretty quiet.
Yeah,
Actually, they were sitting really close to hens.
yeah, yeah,
We got close a couple times, but a hen cut us off.
yeah. Well, I watched your turkey hunt today as well.
Oh, huh?
Yeah, I watched it, and I was out. That thing was right in the edge of the woods, and I was going, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, and then
Yeah,
finally you
I
shot
knew
him.
he was. I knew he was almost gone. Kept hoping he'd just turn and start
Right.
coming. You know how they sometimes do that.
Oh yeah,
And then
yeah,
it came to a point I was like, I'm gonna have to pull the trigger.
yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Well, it mowed him down. Ain't no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, anyway, man, I appreciate you joining me tonight, and we'll have to try to do it again sometime down the road if
absolutely,
you don't mind. I mean, I enjoy the
absolutely.
conversation, and I'm sure when I get off of here, I'll have 50 questions that I wish I would have asked you. Yeah, that's how that goes.
Anytime,
Yeah. All right,
anytime.
man. Well, I appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too.